Have you ever walked away from a conversation and wished you could take your words back? Not because you lied, not because you meant to hurt someone, but because something left your mouth in a moment of frustration, and by the time you realized what you'd done, the damage had already begun. It's a strange thing, isn't it? We often think our biggest battles will come from people who hate us, but sometimes our greatest battle is the one happening behind our own lips. Because words have a way of traveling farther than we ever intended. They leave our mouths in seconds, yet they can stay in someone's heart for years. One sentence can build a marriage, or slowly destroy one. One careless joke can make someone laugh for a moment, or silently question their worth for the rest of the day. One angry response can end a friendship that took years to build. And perhaps the hardest truth of all, sometimes the person our words hurt the most is ourselves. Welcome back to SELAH Chronicles. If this is your first time here, I'm truly glad you're here. This isn't just another motivational channel. This is a place where we slow down, we reflect, we confront the parts of ourselves we often ignore, and together we allow God's wisdom to shape the way we live. So wherever you're listening from, whether you're driving, or simply lying awake because your mind refuses to be quiet, I want you to stay with me, because today's conversation might change the way you speak forever. I don't think we realize how much of our lives is shaped by words. Think about it. Long before we learned mathematics, long before we understood success, long before we knew what love was, someone spoke words over us. Some of us grew up hearing, "You're so smart. I'm proud of you. You'll become somebody one day." Those words became confidence. They became courage. They became identity. But others, they grew up hearing something entirely different. "You're useless. You never do anything right. You'll never amount to anything." And even years later, even after becoming adults, even after getting degrees, starting businesses, building families, those words still echo in the quiet corners of their minds. Isn't that amazing? The mouth that spoke those words may have forgotten them years ago, but the heart that received them still remembers. That's how powerful words are. They don't simply disappear. They settle. They plant seeds. Some become gardens. Others become weeds. The frightening part is, every single day, without even realizing it, we're planting seeds in someone else's life. The Bible puts it in a way that's impossible to ignore. Proverbs 18 verse 21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Notice it doesn't say, "Life is in the tongue." Death and life, the same mouth that can encourage, can also destroy. The same tongue that can pray, can also gossip. The same lips that sing worship on Sunday, can tear someone apart on Monday. That verse always humbles me, because it reminds me that my mouth is carrying more power than I often acknowledge. Every conversation is an opportunity to breathe life, or to slowly suffocate hope. Can I tell you something I've learned the hard way? There was a time in my life when I believed honesty meant saying whatever came to my mind. If I felt offended, I spoke immediately. If someone disappointed me, I made sure they knew. If I thought I was right, I argued until I won. At the time, I called it confidence. I told myself, at least I'm being real. But over time, I began noticing something. People became quieter around me. Some conversations became shorter. Not because people hated me, but because my words made them feel unsafe. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't insulting anyone. But I had developed a habit of speaking before understanding, correcting before listening, reacting before thinking. Looking back now, I realize I wasn't just hurting other people. I was damaging my own peace, because every harsh conversation followed me long after it ended. I would replay it in my head, thinking, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I could have handled that differently. Have you ever experienced that? You finally win the argument, but somehow, you still lose your peace. That's the hidden cost of a loose tongue. It doesn't only wound relationships, it robs you of rest. Most people think words only matter when they're spoken loudly, but that's not true. The quietest sentences leave the deepest scars. A sarcastic comment, a dismissive response, an impatient sigh, a careless joke disguised as just being honest. These things seem small, until they begin shaping how people see themselves. There's an old saying that goes, "The axe forgets, but the tree remembers." The person who spoke may move on, but the person who heard carries it, sometimes for years. Maybe that's you. Maybe someone once told you that you weren't beautiful enough, not intelligent enough, not worthy enough, not capable enough. Maybe they said it once, but you've repeated it to yourself 1,000 times. That's the tragedy of careless words. Eventually, they stop sounding like someone else's voice. They begin sounding like your own. And once that happens, the battle becomes much harder. Because now, you're no longer fighting what they said. You're fighting what you've started believing. This is why God places such importance on our speech. Not because He's trying to control us, but because He understands something we often overlook. Words don't just describe reality. Many times, they shape it. They shape marriages, friendships, families, churches, communities, even our relationship with Him. And perhaps most importantly, they shape the conversations we have with ourselves. Because if every morning you wake up saying, "I'm not enough, nothing good ever happens to me, God has forgotten me," eventually, your heart begins living as though those things are true, even when heaven says otherwise. And that's where we'll continue in the next part. Because sometimes the most dangerous conversation you'll ever have isn't with another person. It's the one you have with yourself, every single day. You know, one of the hardest conversations you'll ever have is the one no one else can hear. The conversation that happens in your own mind. The one that starts the moment you wake up. The one that quietly follows you to work, into your relationships, into your dreams, into your prayers. It's amazing how we can spend years recovering from words that were spoken to us, only to become the very person who keeps repeating them. Someone once called you a failure, and now every mistake you make becomes evidence that they were right. Someone once made you feel invisible, and now you walk into every room already convinced that no one sees you. Someone once told you that you would never become anything, and without realizing it, you began saying the same thing to yourself. Sometimes, the loudest critic in our lives isn't another person. It's the voice we've allowed to live rent-free in our minds. Psychologists have observed something interesting about the human mind. Negative experiences tend to leave a deeper imprint than positive ones. Think about it. You can receive 10 compliments in one day, but if one person insults you, which one do you replay on your drive home? Usually, the insult. Not because it's true, but because our minds naturally cling to threats more than encouragement. It's one of the reasons careless words can be so damaging. A single sentence spoken in anger can become a memory someone carries for years. That's why choosing our words carefully isn't about being overly sensitive. It's about recognizing that people are often fighting battles we know nothing about. The smile you see may be covering grief. The confidence you admire may be hiding insecurity. The laughter you hear may be someone's attempt to survive another difficult day. You never truly know what someone is carrying, so why would we want to add more weight to their shoulders? The truth is, life already has enough voices trying to discourage people. The world tells us we're not successful enough, not attractive enough, not wealthy enough, not accomplished enough. Every day we're surrounded by comparisons. Social media tells us we're behind. The news tells us to be afraid. Our past tells us we'll never change. Our failures tell us to stop trying. If all those voices are already speaking, shouldn't God's people sound different? Shouldn't our words become places where weary hearts can rest? There's a verse that has challenged me more times than I can count. Ephesians 4 verse 29 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Did you notice something beautiful there? It doesn't simply say, "Don't speak negatively." It goes a step further. Speak in a way that benefits the person listening. That changes everything. Before speaking, imagine asking yourself one simple question. Will these words leave this person stronger or weaker? Imagine how different our homes would be. Imagine how different our marriages would be. Imagine how different our friendships would become. Sometimes people don't need another lecture. They don't need another reminder of where they've fallen short. They simply need someone to remind them that tomorrow is still worth believing in. And what a privilege it is to be that voice. I remember a season in my life when I was carrying more pressure than I admitted to anyone. Everything felt uncertain. I questioned whether I was making the right decisions. I smiled in conversations, but deep down I was exhausted. One day, someone looked at me and said something so simple that I almost overlooked it. They said, "I don't know everything you're carrying, but I hope you know that you're stronger than you think. God hasn't brought you this far to leave you now." That wasn't a long speech. It wasn't a sermon. It wasn't even a deep conversation. Just a few sincere words. But somehow, those words met me exactly where I was. I've forgotten many conversations from that season, but I still remember that one. Isn't that incredible? Sometimes we underestimate what God can do through an ordinary sentence spoken at the right time. You don't always need a microphone to change someone's life. Sometimes, you just need kindness. But this conversation isn't only about the words we speak to others. It's also about the words we speak when no one is around. Because eventually, whatever fills your heart will find its way to your mouth. Jesus said in Luke 6 verse 45, "For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." That verse always causes me to pause, because whenever my words become impatient, harsh, proud, or bitter, it's tempting to blame the situation, to blame stress, to blame difficult people. But Jesus gently redirects our attention. He points back to the heart. In other words, our mouths often reveal what our hearts have been rehearsing. If bitterness has been quietly growing, our words will expose it. If resentment has been settling in, our conversations will eventually reveal it. If grace has been taking root, that too will become evident. The tongue is often like a window. It reveals what's happening inside long before we notice it ourselves. Maybe that's why David prayed one of the most honest prayers in Scripture. He didn't simply ask God to change his circumstances. He asked God to change him. "Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips." Psalm 141 verse 3. I love that prayer, because David understood something we often learn too late. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't changing another person's heart. It's asking God to help us control our own tongue before it controls us. Imagine how many regrets could be avoided if we paused before reacting. Imagine how many relationships could be healed if we chose understanding over winning. Imagine how much peace we would protect if we learned that not every thought deserves to become a sentence. Silence isn't weakness. Many times, it's wisdom wearing patience. And perhaps that's one of the greatest signs of maturity. Not that you always know what to say, but that you know when not to speak. As we continue, we're going to look at the hidden ways a loose tongue damages trust, relationships, and even our walk with God. And more importantly, how the Lord can transform our speech into a source of healing instead of harm. Can I ask you something? Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to rebuild trust once words have broken it? A glass can be glued back together. A house can be rebuilt after a storm. Even a broken bone eventually heals. But words have a way of leaving invisible fractures. No one can see them, yet somehow, they hurt the most. Person may smile at you, shake your hand, even laugh at your jokes. But deep inside, they're still carrying the weight of something you said months ago. Not because they're weak, but because words have a way of attaching themselves to the heart. And hearts remember. One of the most painful things about a loose tongue is that it often destroys slowly. Not all at once. Relationships rarely end because of one conversation. More often, they unravel one careless sentence at a time. A sarcastic comment here. A broken promise there. An unnecessary criticism. A harsh response after a long day. A joke that embarrassed someone in front of others. Little by little, trust begins to leak. Respect begins to fade. Warmth turns into distance. Until one day people don't leave because of what happened yesterday. They leave because of everything that's been happening for years. That's why it's so important to guard our words before we have to repair the damage they leave behind. And then there's gossip. If I'm honest, gossip is one of those sins that often disguises itself as conversation. We tell ourselves, "I'm just sharing what happened. I'm only concerned. You didn't hear this from me." But if we're being truthful, sometimes we enjoy knowing things other people don't. Sometimes it makes us feel important. Sometimes it gives us a false sense of closeness with the person we're talking to. But have you noticed something? The same person who feels comfortable gossiping with you will probably feel comfortable gossiping about you, because habits don't usually change with different audiences. They simply change direction. The Bible says in Proverbs 16 verse 28, "A perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends." Think about those last three words. Separates close friends. Not strangers. Friends. People who once laughed together, prayed together, trusted one another. A loose tongue doesn't always create enemies. It quietly divides people who were once inseparable. And the sad part is that by the time the truth finally comes out, the damage has already spread. Like a feather released into the wind, it's almost impossible to gather every piece back again. There's another kind of loose tongue we don't talk about enough. The tongue that speaks out of anger. Now let's be honest. We've all been there. Someone says something that offends us. Someone misunderstands our intentions. Someone pushes us one step too far. And suddenly, our emotions reach our mouths before our wisdom does. In those moments, feels good to respond, feels justified. We want the last word. We want them to know exactly how they made us feel. But here's the problem. Anger is often loud, while wisdom is usually quiet. And if we allow anger to become our language, we'll spend years apologizing for moments that lasted only seconds. I once heard someone say, "Never make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions." I think the same applies to our speech. Never speak permanent words based on temporary anger, because emotions settle, but spoken words remain. The book of Proverbs gives us another timeless reminder. Proverbs 15 verse 1 says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." That verse almost feels backwards, doesn't it? Because our natural instinct is to match someone's energy. If they're loud, we become louder. If they're disrespectful, we become more disrespectful. If they hurt us, we want them to hurt too. But God's wisdom often moves in the opposite direction of human instinct. Gentleness isn't weakness. It's strength under control. It's choosing peace when your emotions are begging for war. It's understanding that winning an argument isn't always the same as winning a heart. And sometimes, the strongest person in the room isn't the one who says the most. It's the one who knows when silence is the wiser response. You know what I've come to realize? People rarely remember every word you said, but they'll remember how your words made them feel. Years from now, someone may not remember the advice you gave, but they'll remember that your words made them feel seen, safe, valued, respected. Or, they'll remember feeling small, ashamed, ignored. That's why every conversation is more significant than we think. We're constantly leaving emotional fingerprints on the people around us. The question is, what kind of fingerprints are we leaving? Maybe you're listening today and you're thinking, "I've already said things I can't take back." Maybe you've lost friendships because of your temper. Maybe you've hurt your spouse, your children, your parents. Maybe you've spoken words over yourself that have kept you trapped in fear for years. That's you. I don't want you to stay in regret, because regret may show us where we've been, but it was never meant to become the place where we live. The beautiful thing about God is that He specializes in restoration. The enemy loves to convince us that one mistake defines our future. But grace tells a different story. Grace says, you can learn, you can grow, you can apologize, you can rebuild, you can become a different person than you were yesterday. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens one surrendered conversation at a time, one thoughtful response at a time, one prayer before speaking at a time. And over time, God begins doing something remarkable. He doesn't just change our vocabulary, He changes our hearts. Because when the heart changes, the mouth naturally follows. In the final part of this conversation, we'll discover how to become someone whose words consistently bring life, healing, hope, and wisdom, and why your tongue may be one of the greatest tools God has entrusted to you. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with one thought. Your tongue is one of the smallest parts of your body, yet it has the power to shape the direction of your entire life. Think about that for a moment. Every day, you wake up with countless opportunities to speak to your spouse, to your children, to to your friends, to strangers, to the cashier who serves you, to the colleague who sits beside you, and perhaps most importantly, to yourself. Every single one of those conversations is an opportunity to either plant life or plant fear, to build or to tear down or to wound. We often pray for God to use us in extraordinary ways. We ask Him for influence, for purpose, for open doors, for opportunities to make a difference. But what if one of the greatest ministries God has already given you is your everyday speech? What if the miracle someone is praying for comes through a conversation with you? What if the encouragement that keeps someone from giving up is hidden inside a sentence you haven't spoken yet? Sometimes we imagine changing the world through grand gestures. Yet Jesus often changed lives one conversation at a time. One woman at a well, one blind man, one grieving sister, one discouraged disciple, one broken heart. Never underestimate what God can do through ordinary words surrendered to Him. But let's make this practical, because inspiration without application rarely changes anything. So what can we actually do? Maybe the first step is learning to pause. Not every thought deserves to become a sentence. Not every opinion needs to be shared. Not every argument needs your participation. Sometimes wisdom sounds like silence. Sometimes maturity looks like walking away. Sometimes strength is choosing peace over proving you're right. The older I get, the more I realize that protecting your peace is often more valuable than protecting your pride. You don't have to win every debate. You don't have to respond to every insult. You don't have to defend yourself against every misunderstanding. There are battles that God never asked you to fight, and there are words He never asked you to speak. Maybe another step is becoming intentional about speaking life. Imagine beginning each day with one decision. Today, someone will leave my presence feeling lighter than when they met me. Not because you have all the answers, not because life is perfect, but because you've decided that your words will reflect the heart of Christ. Tell people you're proud of them. Thank those who serve quietly. Encourage someone who looks discouraged. Apologize quickly when you're wrong. Celebrate other people's victories without comparing them to your own. Speak hope into your home. Speak peace over your family. Speak kindness to the stranger who may be carrying a burden you'll never see. The world already has enough criticism, enough outrage, enough division. What it desperately needs is more people who speak life. And don't forget to speak life over yourself. Some of us have become so accustomed to criticizing ourselves that it feels normal. We say things like, "I'm always messing things up. Nothing good ever happens to me. I'll never change. I'm not good enough." But those words matter too. Because if, as Proverbs says, life and death are in the power of the tongue, then that includes the words you whisper to yourself. Instead of repeating the lies your past handed to you, begin repeating what God says about you. When fear says, "You're alone," remember that God says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." When shame says, "You're too broken," remember that His grace is sufficient. When doubt says, "You'll never become who God called you to be," remember that the one who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. God's voice should always become louder than your insecurity. One final scripture has stayed with me for years. James 1 verse 19 says, "Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Isn't it interesting? God never tells us to stop speaking. He simply tells us to slow down. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Imagine what would happen if we lived like that. Imagine the misunderstandings that would disappear, the arguments that would never begin, the relationships that would heal, the peace we would protect. Listening is one of the purest forms of love, because when you truly listen, you remind people that they matter. And perhaps that's something all of us need a little more of. Before we end, I want you to think about one person, just one, someone who changed your life with their words. Maybe it was a parent, a teacher, a pastor, a friend, a grandparent, someone who saw something in you before you saw it in yourself. Their words became a turning point. Now ask yourself another question. Whose turning point could you become? Whose life might be different because you chose encouragement instead of criticism? Whose faith might grow stronger because you reminded them that God hasn't forgotten them? whose heart might begin healing because your words reflected compassion instead of condemnation. You may never fully know. This side of eternity, you may never hear every story. But heaven keeps perfect records. And I believe there will be people who thank God because someone chose to speak life when they needed it most. Maybe that someone will be you. So today, before you leave this video, take a moment. Ask God to guard your heart. Ask Him to guard your mouth. Ask Him to make your words a source of healing, not harm, of peace, not division, of hope, not despair. Because your words are never just sounds. They are seeds. And one day, every seed you plant will bear fruit. The question is, what kind of harvest are you creating? If this conversation spoke to your heart, I want to encourage you to do something this week. Choose one person every single day and intentionally speak life into them. It doesn't have to be something profound. A sincere compliment, a message of encouragement, a genuine "I'm proud of you," or simply reminding someone that God loves them and they're not alone. You never know how much those few words might mean. And if today's message encouraged you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder that words have power. If you're new to SELAH Chronicles, I'd love for you to join this growing community by subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss a conversation like this. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. In the comments below, finish this sentence. Starting today, my words will. I'll be reading your responses, and I can't wait to hear what God is doing in your life. Until next time, slow down, take a deep breath, guard your heart, guard your words, and remember, the same mouth that can wound can also heal. Choose to speak life. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next episode of SELAH Chronicles.